Well, it's a great big world, and it's been changing very fast. I think of 6 years ago, I was working in Switzerland, and it was solid, steady. It had been working that way since I finished law school. We all knew that about 1/3 of the world's private wealth was in Switzerland. We also knew that about 1/3 of that private wealth is what the Swiss called black money, not taxed in the home country, but welcome in Switzerland. Switzerland has had a very unusual distinction where undeclared, unreported income is not a problem. Reporting it incorrectly is. And that is part of what led to some of this enormous global change we've had. I was there 6 years ago, and during that time, the U.S. started the subprime mortgage disasters, triggered the global financial crisis. A few months later, I got a call in my office in Zurich from my bank, Credit Suisse in Zurich, saying, "We see that you are a U.S. taxpayer. We are closing your account. Where do you want the money sent?" So the U.S. started making some huge changes in the world. And now we're on the verge of doing it again from the U.S. So I'm going to talk first just about some big picture worldviews, then some private family wealth trends, and then narrow into the family office, just to set it up for your full day of speakers on all the various family office issues. So what is going on now? I do a lot of work in the Gulf region now. I quit doing much work in Europe because the private wealth industry wasn't doing so well in Europe. There's a lot of money in the Gulf area. But I was in Saudi Arabia during the Arab Spring and the Day of Rage. I was in Dammam that day. I still go there a lot. I went 9 times last year working with Saudi families and their private wealth issues. But I'm hearing again from the top-ranking families in that whole region, like, just in case something happens in our home country, just in case, where do I put my money? Where's a safe country? It's still going on. The EU is not looking good for private wealth these days, as you know. And poor Switzerland. I mean, then we had the U.S. tax authorities and Justice Department suing UBS, wanting names of all U.S. taxpayers. And now, starting next year, there's going to be enforcement of FATCA. Will you just raise your hands if you don't know about FATCA? Isn't that terrible? Everybody knows. Ugh. Okay, and I thought I'd stop for a minute and explain the rules about who is a U.S. taxpayer. Because when I travel outside of the U.S., people just don't believe me that the U.S. has such a wide definition of U.S. citizen taxpayers. Okay, so I have a lot of bad news, but I'll summarize it. So who is a U.S. citizen for tax purposes? And for tax purposes, worldwide income is taxed. Doesn't matter where it's earned, where the person lives, where the investments are. that citizenship by itself, even if you're a citizen of India, Saudi, France, if you have U.S. citizenship also, worldwide tax follows. That's the part nobody believes because no one else does it except the U.S. So it's wide, it's serious. How do you find out these accidental U.S. citizens? I would mention 3 ways. 1, any child born in the U.S. Parents are there for graduate school. They may never get a U.S. passport. They may never think about it. They're taxpayer U.S. citizens. 2, born anywhere to 2 parents who are also U.S. citizens, as long as one of the parents lived in the U.S. sometime before the birth. 3, born outside the U.S., one parent is U.S., maybe double, triple, but U.S. in there. As long as that parent lived in the U.S. at least 5 years total, 2 of them after age 14, all of them before the birth, that child is a U.S. citizen for FATCA, all these other tax purposes. So what we're seeing now is a big increase in giving up U.S. citizenship. And someone asked me here if I'd be sure to mention that because there have been a lot of questions about it in India. So I wanted to go over those rules quickly, which I did with you. So where is a safe place? Families are looking for a safe place to put their investment. Some families I know in the Gulf region are also looking for a safe home for their family, a place they can run to easily. It's not a happy thought, but there's a lot of anxiety I see traveling around. There's one investment research company called Magna Funds that studies only what are the good countries this year. Where would it be safe to put money this year? They rank countries by the transparency of their government, their institutions, their accountability. So I checked with them before giving this talk, and they rank India pretty high. They don't rank China very high. And so there's a push to focus more on the country than the type of investment. A lot of people say all the money that was in Switzerland is just running over to Singapore. It could be. I think there's some truth in that. But there are also other places in the world trying to get the money. Dubai passed a lot of laws, but people don't seem to be using them. It hasn't really taken off. I got a call last year from Labuan. Anybody, raise your hands if you know where Labuan is. They're trying to beat Singapore at being an offshore financial center. They're in Malaysia, so just keep an eye out for them. Singapore will have some competition. So now I want to stop and look at some trends. What is going on? One thing that's going on is that I see a lot of use in offshore trusts. How many of you are working with families who have family trusts? Just a few. Even though you do have internal trust law, but what I find is most families feel safer if they've diversified their holdings so that some of it's offshore. And a trust is an excellent way to hold funds for the family offshore. Another trend I see is direct investments in stable country businesses. family wealth feels often more comfortable directly investing in a business they can watch, look at, be on the board of, understand, than in complicated investment funds. Another trend I see is co-investing with partners you trust, people you like, and working together on the investments. Now, the second main topic is just the generation of wealth itself on a macro level. Family businesses are still the key around the world, make up most of every country's economy. They have growth ahead. They want to continue with an entrepreneur's culture and maybe not get listed or public, but at least to aspire toward that as a way of operating. And it's a hard struggle for them. The worldwide proverb is shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations. Why does that happen? Why do only 6 of 100 businesses survive to the 3rd generation? It's happened here in India too. I've read about some of the family litigation and conflicts. Most often, the cause of this failure comes from internal family conflict. So I've been promoting strong family governance, and you'll have some sessions on that today too, where you think of a family group the way you would think of a high-ranking country. Is there communication, transparency of information, accountability? Do all the members participate in the governance structure? Are you all lined up with the same goals? What does this mean from a practical point of view? Several stages to have formal family meetings. How many of you work with families who have formal family meetings now? Okay, just like 6 or 7. Professor John Ward at the Kellogg School in Chicago has studied why some family businesses make it past the 3rd generation. And he found 2 factors: a good independent board of directors and regular formal family meetings. And of those 2 factors, his research showed the most important was the family meetings. I got to know him a few years ago, and he said, "You know, Barbara, it doesn't matter what they talk about. It's the fact that the family gets together and talks and deals with any issues they have." Many families working on family governance form a family council. Show of hands, working with families with a family council. We've got like 3. Okay. And then the family often, I've worked with them in many countries, will want to write its own family constitution. Again, just like it's a country. Anyone work with family constitutions? We're down to 2. Okay. And then, of course, from a governance point of view, it's really important to have good boards. Boards of the family, family business, family office. So why have a family office anyway? Just to give the quick overview. Families like to have the independence of advice they get from their own staff.